I'm going to share my screen. So we'll start by reading the translation of all the verses from this chapter. I did miss the last lecture by Soham Prabhu, so I saw the link posted and I kind of skimmed through it, so I have context for what he covered. But if I apologize if anything is a repeat, but I might restate some things that he said just for context. But anyways, let's get started with the reading. So can I get 3 volunteers? Maybe we'll do 5 verses each. Yes, Nupur, the first one. Okay, so let's get going with the first 5 then.
Hare Krishna. Vidura inquired, why was Daksha, who was so affectionate towards his daughter, envious of Lord Shiva, who is the best among the gentle? Why did he neglect his daughter Sati? Lord Shiva, the spiritual master of the entire world, is free from enmity, is a peaceful personality, and is always satisfied in himself. He is the greatest among the demigods. How is it possible that Daksha could be inimical towards such an auspicious personality? My dear Maitreya, to part with one's life is very difficult. Would you kindly explain to me how such a son in law and father in law could quarrel so bitterly that the great goddess Sati could give up her life? The sage Maitreya said, in a former time, the leaders of the universal creation performed a great sacrifice in which all the great sages, philosophers, demigods, and fire gods assembled with their followers. When Daksha, the leader of the Prajapatis, entered that assembly, his personal bodily luster as bright as the effulgence of the sun, the entire assembly was illuminated, and all the assembled personalities became insignificant in his presence. Oh, Krishna.
Thank you so much, Nupur. Can I get another volunteer? Start from text 6. Okay, I might call on someone then.
Sorry, which verses to read?
From text 6.
6 to?
6 to 10.
Okay, let me turn my screen. Influenced by his personal bodily luster, all the fire gods and other participants in that great assembly, with the exceptions of Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, gave up their own sitting places and stood in respect for Daksha. Daksha was adequately welcomed by the president of the great assembly, Lord Brahma. After offering Lord Brahma respect, Daksha, by the order of Brahma, properly took his seat. Before taking his seat, however, Daksha was very much offended to see Lord Shiva sitting and not showing him any respect. At that time, Daksha became greatly angry, and his eyes glowing, he began to speak very strongly against Lord Shiva. All sages, brahmanas, and fire gods present, please hear me with attention, for I speak about the manners of gentle persons. I do not speak out of ignorance or envy. Shiva has spoiled the name and fame of the governors of the universe and has polluted the path of gentle manners. Because he is shameless, he does not know how to act. How many verses are?
Okay, thank you, Prabhu. Gaurakumar Prabhu,
Yeah.
please.
He has already accepted himself as my subordinate by marrying my daughter in the presence of fire and Brahmanas. He has married my daughter, who is equal to Gayatri, and has pretended to be just like an honest person. He has eyes like a monkey's, yet he has married my daughter, whose eyes are just like those of a deer cub. Nevertheless, he did not stand up to receive me, nor did he think it fit to welcome me with sweet words. I had no desire to give my daughter to this person who has broken all rules of civility. Because of not observing the required rules and regulations, he is impure. But I was obliged to hand over my daughter to him, just as one teaches the messages of the Vedas to a Shudra. He lives in filthy places like crematoriums, and his companions are the ghosts and demons. Naked like a madman, sometimes laughing and sometimes crying, he smears crematorium ashes all over his body. He does not bathe regularly, and he ornaments his body with a garland of skulls and bones. Therefore, only in name is he Shiva or auspicious. Actually, he is the most mad and inauspicious creature. Thus, he is very dear to crazy beings in the gross mode of ignorance, and he is their leader. I'll keep reading until someone raises. I'll keep reading until someone raises their hand, other than Jagannath
Sure,
Gopal.
Prabhu.
On the request of Lord Brahma, I handed over my chaste daughter to him, although he is devoid of all cleanliness and his heart is filled with nasty things. The sage Maitreya continued. Thus Daksha, seeing Lord Shiva sitting as if against him, washed his hands and mouth and cursed him in the following words: The demigods are eligible to share in the oblations of sacrifice, but Lord Shiva, who is the lowest of all the demigods, should not have a share. Maitreya continued, My dear Vidura, in spite of the requests of all the members of the sacrificial assembly, Daksha, in great anger, cursed Lord Shiva and then left the assembly and went back to his home. Upon understanding that Lord Shiva had been cursed, Nandishvara, one of Lord Shiva's principal associates, became greatly angry. His eyes became red, and he prepared to curse Daksha and all the Brahmanas present there who had tolerated Daksha's cursing Shiva in harsh words. Anyone who has accepted Daksha as the most important personality and neglected Lord Shiva because of envy is less intelligent, and because of visualizing in duality will be bereft of transcendental knowledge. Jagannath Gopal Prabhu. 22.
Pretentiously religious householder life, in which one is attracted to material happiness and thus also attracted to superficial explanation of the Vedas, robs one of all intelligence and attaches one to fruitive activities as all in all. Daksha has accepted the body as all in all. Therefore, since he has forgotten the Vishnu path or Vishnu Gati and is attached to sex life only, within a short time he will have the face of a goat. Those who have become as dull as matter by cultivating materialistic education and intelligence are nesciently involved in fruitive activities. Such men have purposely insulted Lord Shiva. May they continue in a cycle of repeated birth and death. May those who are envious of Lord Shiva, being attracted by the flowery language of the enchanting Vedic promises, and who have thus become dull, always remain attached to fruitive activities. These Brahmanas take to education, austerity, and vows only for the purpose of maintaining the body. They shall be devoid of discrimination between what to eat and what not to eat. They will acquire money begging from door to door simply for the satisfaction of the body. When all the hereditary Brahmanas were thus cursed by Nandishvara, the sage Brigu, as a reaction, condemned the followers of Lord Shiva with his very strong Brahminical curse. One who takes a vow to satisfy Lord Shiva or who follows such principles will certainly become an atheist and be diverted from transcendental scriptural injunctions. Those who vow to worship Lord Shiva are so foolish that they imitate him by keeping long hair on their heads. When initiated into the worship of Lord Shiva, they prefer to live on wine, flesh, and other such things. Brigu continued, Since you blaspheme the Vedas and the Brahmanas, who are followers of the Vedic principles, it is understood that you have already taken shelter of the doctrine of atheism. Should I continue? Or
Anyone else would like to volunteer to read? I think there's only 5 more left.
okay, if it's five more, I can just complete it.
Okay, bro. Thank you.
The Vedas give the eternal regulative principles for auspicious advancement in human civilization, which have been rigidly followed in the past. The strong evidence of this principle is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is called as Janardhan, the well-wisher of all living entities. By blaspheming the principles of the Vedas, which are the pure and supreme path of the saintly persons, certainly you followers of Bhutapati, Lord Shiva, will descend to the standard of atheism without a doubt. The sage Maitreya said, when such cursing and counter cursing was going on between Lord Shiva's followers and the parties of Daksha and Bhrigu, Lord Shiva became very morose. Not saying anything, he left the arena of the sacrifice, followed by his disciples. The sage Maitreya continued, O Vidura, all the progenitors of the universal population thus executed a sacrifice for thousands of years, for sacrifice is the best way to worship the Supreme Lord Hari, the personality of Godhead. My dear Vidura, carrier of bows and arrows, all the demigods who were performing the sacrifice took their bath at the confluence of the Ganges and the Yamuna after completing the yajna performance. Such a bath is called Avabhrit, Avabhrita Snana. After thus becoming purified in heart, they departed for their respective abodes.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for all the volunteers for reading. And so now we'll dive a little bit deeper into this chapter. So I'll first say my prayers. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalaam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatham Sagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंदा हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 रामा राम राम हरे हरे. Okay, thank you once again, everyone, for joining. I am definitely not qualified to um, present this to all of you, but still, as a service and for my own purification, I'm doing this. So please forgive me for anything wrong I say or any mistakes I made, and please feel free to interject and um, ask any questions, or if you have any comments or any discussions you want to feel free to jump in at any time. Okay, so this chapter is chapter 2. So Soham Prabhu did a very nice overview of the first chapter, as well as diving deep into Shiva Tattva and trying to understand more about Lord Shiva. And so continuation, this chapter goes into um, the conflict between Prajapati Daksh and Lord Shiva. So who was Prajapati Daksh? He was um, one of the 10 Manas Putras of Brahma. So he was a Manas Putra. So he emerged directly from the head of Brahma, and he was married to Prasuti. Prasuti, if you remember from the last chapter, was one of the daughters, one of the three daughters of Swayambhu Manu. And so Prajapati Daksha, he was Prajapati, so he was tasked to increase the population of the world in the very beginning. So he was not some ordinary character. He's a very significant personality, very powerful, and a very strong character as well. So he had a lot of kids. So he had a wife named Asikni, and from her, he first had 5,000 sons. And I'm sure most of us have heard the story of how the first sons of Prajapati Daksha, um, they were influenced by Narad Muni to become renounced, and so they didn't do the job that that Daksha wanted them to do, which was to increase the population. And so Brahma then told Daksha again to have more kids, and so he had another 1,000 sons, and those were also influenced by Narad Muni to um, become renounced and become devotees of the Lord. And so again, they did not do the job of increasing the population. Then from his wife Prasuti, he had 24 daughters. And from Asikni, he had 60 daughters. So he had 60 more daughters because um, he knew that 24 was not enough. So of the 24 daughters, one daughter was Sati. So Sati was a very dear daughter of Prajapati Daksha. He was very affectionate towards her. So in this chapter, in the beginning, Vidura is asking Maitreya Muni if Sati is such a dear daughter to Daksha and Lord Shiva is her husband, then why was he so envious of him and why was he so negative? I mean, we just read in the chapter how heavy statements Daksha was using against Lord Shiva which is really appalling. Um, so that's the question that Vidura has posed to Maitreya Muni, which starts off the story. So Daksha, Vashisht, and Marichi, so all three of them were three of the 10 Manasputras of Brahma, and they had arranged a sacrifice for the pacification of the universe. So that's a pretty big task, pacification of the universe. So you can imagine how big that sacrifice was, how significant it was. Everyone was there, Brahma was there, and Lord Shiva was there as well. And so, yeah, why was Daksha envious of Lord Shiva? So who is Lord Shiva? I'm not going to get too much into this since Soham Prabhu already touched on this topic, but just for context, Shiva means all auspiciousness. Um, so Lord Shiva is comes from Shambhu, and Shambhu is um, a Krishna is basically a form of Krishna. So um, Krishna took the form of Shambhu for the particular purpose of destruction and to deliver the demons and the asuras. He came in the form of Shambhu for that particular purpose, and Shiva comes from Shambhu. So description of Lord Shiva comes from the Shiva Puran, which is the fourth out of the 18 Puranas written by Vyasadeva. The Shiv Puran is actually bigger than the Srimad Bhagavatam. I thought that was interesting. There's 100,000 verses in the Shiv Puran, and Vyasadeva compiled or condensed them into 24,000 verses. So it's really big. Srimad Bhagavatam has 18,000 verses. So we already learned about Shiva Tattva last time. So Shiva Tattva is between Vishnu Tattva and Jiva Tattva, and Lord Shiva has 55 gunas, which is 5 gunas more than the Jivatmas. We talked about that last time. Um, and so he is Charachar Guru, so he is the spiritual master of the entire world. He is the greatest among demigods. He's the greatest among the Vaishnavas. He's the worshipful deity of the demons and the ghosts and the spirits. His job is to deliver them. And also his job is the destruction of the material world. He is married to Durga Devi. He's always peaceful and he's fully renounced. So he's a pure devotee of the Lord. So that's why he is unaffected by all the ignorance that he's surrounded with. Okay, so So what happened next? So the sacrifice was being conducted. Daksha came into the sacrifice. He had a great effulgence because he was a great personality. And everyone except for Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva stood up. And so Daksha became very much offended that Lord Shiva did not stand up because he was the son-in-law. He was his son-in-law. So from a bodily conception or from a materialistic relationship perspective, he was, I guess, senior to Lord Shiva in that sense. And so Daksha assumed that Lord Shiva would give him respect, and he did not. And so he was offended. But Daksha was not aware, I guess, or conscious of the position of Lord Shiva, how he is non-different from Krishna, and he is the greatest among demigods, and so he is above Prajapati Daksh. And also Daksha did not like Lord Shiva because of his lifestyle, his how he was associated with the demons and the ghosts, and how he appeared to be unclean and renounced, and so he was not impressed with Lord Shiva. And so because he's offended, he gets very angry, and then he starts talking a lot. He says a lot of things against Lord Shiva, and he starts out by saying um, he's not saying it out of envy, and he's saying all this because he wants to bring to light the reality of Lord Shiva. But in reality, he is envious of Lord Shiva, even though he says he's not. He says that he's speaking in manners of gentle persons, and but whatever he says is definitely not gentle. So he's raging with anger. So he says a lot of things. He says that Daksha has spoiled the name and fame of the governors of the universe, and that's because he considers Lord Shiva's actions to be very disrespectful, and so he's spoiling the name and fame of um, the seniors because he does not know how to show respect. He's subordinate. Daksha considers him subordinate. He says that he's a dishonest person because he pretended to be honest by being in Daksha's mind. He pretends to be an honest person, but now he's showing his dishonesty by not showing respect. He says his eyes are like a monkey and his daughter's eyes are like a deer. So, a lot of very offensive things that he's saying. He has completely lost his mind. He doesn't know who he's talking to, and he doesn't know the implications of what he's saying. So Daksha did not want his daughter to marry Lord Shiva, and he only did it because Brahma asked him to. And so by considering Lord Shiva not worthy of his daughter, he is also disrespecting Lord Brahma because now he's saying that Brahma doesn't know what he's doing, and he doesn't think that this alliance was a good idea. But he did it anyways because Brahma is his father, and so he has to listen. And so he was essentially forced to have his daughter marry um, Lord Shiva. So, more complaints against Lord Shiva. He does not follow rules and regulations. He says that he compares him to a Shudra. So he says, um, he he says as if teaching Vedas to a Shudra is um, he says that a Shudra is forbidden from learning the Vedas because he is unclean. And so that's the comparison that he draws, saying that Lord Shiva is also unclean. He lives in crematoriums. He's always with ghosts and demons. He's naked like a madman. Sometimes he laughs, sometimes he cries. He spreads ashes all over his body. He doesn't take bath. He wears garlands of skulls and bones. Only he says only his name is auspicious, but he's completely inauspicious. Lord Shiva takes responsibility of elevating the beings who are in the mode of ignorance. So everything that Daksha says, I mean, some of them is true that this is what who Lord Shiva is, but Daksha does not understand the glories of Lord Shiva. He also doesn't understand why Lord Shiva is the way he is, and he doesn't understand that uh, Krishna or Vishnu has sanctioned him to do this duty and to be in this way. So he says all these things very offensively, and he is offending a great devotee of the Lord. So nothing good can come out of that. Um, there's a verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrit that says, Yara chitte Krishna prema karaya udaya tara vakya kriya mudra vidnaya na bhujaya. So this verse means Yara chitte Krishna prema. So whoever's heart Krishna prema has arisen, tara vakya kriya mudra. So their kriya, their actions, their vakya, so their words, and mudra, so their symptoms, are not understandable by even the smartest of peoples. So this is a very applicable verse to Lord Shiva. He's a pure devotee of the Lord. There's only Krishna Prem in his heart. And so even the smartest of beings, including Prajapati Daksh, cannot understand him. They don't understand his actions, they don't understand his words, and they don't understand his symptoms of being in Krishna Prem. All the symptoms that he has. Okay, so after Daksha says all these things, now he curses Lord Shiva. So he says he washes his hand and mouth, and then he curses Lord Shiva, and he says that Lord Shiva will not get a share in the oblations of sacrifice. So this curse doesn't isn't even a curse for Lord Shiva, because Lord Shiva is above the material platform. He doesn't need the benefits of a sacrifice. So actually, Daksha's curse didn't end up being a curse for Lord Shiva anyways. Um, he was saved from having to take part with all the materialistic demigods who are expecting something out of the sacrifice. Lord Shiva is above all of that, and so he doesn't want to associate with any materialistic people, and so the curse didn't affect Lord Shiva at all. And in this purport, Srila Prabhupada gives the example of Gaur Kishore Das Babaji, who used to sit near the bathroom to chant Hare Krishna so that he didn't have to deal with materialistic people. No one will come near him. He can go on chanting without any disturbance. So Prabhupada gives this example to show how pure devotees of the Lord, they're only concerned with performing their devotional service. They're only concerned with being immersed in Krishna's name, and they don't want to deal with materialistic people. They don't want to deal with any materialistic activities. Um, Even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu didn't meet King Prataparudra for a long time because he did not want to associate with materialistic people. So what Daksha said before his curse, in my opinion, was way more detrimental than the actual curse itself, because um, he said a lot of offensive things. Um, so he so Daksha was so consumed by anger that he uh, didn't realize that everyone was requesting him to not curse Lord Shiva because that's a bad idea. You should not curse Lord Shiva. But Daksha had completely lost his mind. So there's verses in the Bhagavad Gita that everyone knows. Dhyato Vishaya Pumsan Dhyato Vishaya Pumsan Sangaste Sanjayate Kamam Krodha Bijayate. So whenever one contemplates on the sense objects, there's attachment to those objects, and when there's attachment, um, there is anger that comes when our desires are not fulfilled. So we get krodha. And then what happens when we get angry? Krodhat bhavati sammohat smriti vibhrama, smriti brahmashat buddhi nasha pranashyati. So from anger comes illusion. So these two verses are exactly what happened to Daksha. He was attached to his material position. He was attached to the respect um, that he was getting, and so when his desire was not fulfilled because he was so attached, he got angry, and then uh, Krodhat bhavati sammohat smriti vibhrama. He smriti, loss of memory. So he completely forgot who Lord Shiva is and where he is, who is present there. Smriti Brahmasad Buddhi Naso. In Buddhi Naso means intelligence was completely lost. He completely lost his intelligence on what he's doing and how greatly he's offending Lord Shiva. And Buddhi Nashat Pranashyati. That means completely fallen down. So Daksha's fall down happened here because he was too attached to his materialistic position. And from that, it was a ripple effect all the way to him offending a great devotee of the Lord. So, because Daksha offended Lord Shiva, he was completely taken over by lust, anger, and greed, kama, krodha, and lobha. So so that's why it's very important to pay attention and not offend devotees of the Lord, because the implications of that can be extreme. But we should always respect Vaishnavas, and also um, we can see how attachment to materialistic things or positions or fame or opulence can lead to a complete downfall. We might think that my attachment to a certain thing is okay and what can happen. But in the end, the results of that can be pretty severe, whether we're attached to our occupation or whether we're attached to our family or we're attached to our wealth. In the beginning, it might seem like it's harmless, but what road it can take you down, what decisions it makes you do, is is unpredictable. And Bhagavad Gita guides us through these verses and tells us exactly what happens. And so it's important for us to be cautious and guard against um, these attachments that we have to the material world. Okay, I'll pause here for a second. If anyone has any comments or questions or want to expand on what we discussed so far. Yes, Manan Prabhu?
So you quoted this verse, Dhyate Vishayan Pumsa, in this context. I was wondering, what is the Vishaya that Daksha was contemplating here? Um, it seems to. So yeah, I didn't get that. What is the contemplation which led to attachment? After anger, it's clear, but how did it start?
Yeah, so Daksha was attached to his position. So he was, like I described in the beginning, he's a Prajapati. So he's a son of Brahma. He had so many children. He was married to the daughter of Swayambhu Manu. He was a major personality. He had lots of children, and children are opulent, so he
Right.
was
So,
attached to his position and the respect that he was getting. So everyone in the assembly stood up, except for Lord Brahma, because he's more senior than Daksha, but everyone in the assembly was considered his subordinate, except for Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma. So that's what he was contemplating on, the respect, the position that he had. And so when he didn't get the results that he was hoping for because of his position, that's what led to his anger.
hmm, okay.
Thank you for that question. Anyone else have anything to say? Okay, let's keep moving then. Um, so now there's counter cursing that happens. So Lord Shiva is quietly watching what's happening, but there's other people in the assembly that get affected by Daksha's words. And so Nandishwar, who is Lord Shiva's principal associate, he becomes very angry because he hears, all the offensive things that Daksha says. And so he curses Daksha and all the Brahmanas there. And at this point, everyone is a little derailed. There's an atmosphere of anger and accusations and contention. And so everyone there is being affected by that type of environment, except for Lord Shiva, because he is equipoised. He's a pure devotee of the Lord. It doesn't matter what's going on. He's always fixed in his devotional service. Um, so Nandishwar says that Daksha is identifying with his body because he's only seeing the relationship of him being his Lord Shiva being his son-in-law, and he's not seeing the spiritual position of Lord Shiva and his seniority. So that's why Nandishwar says that Daksha is identifying with his body, and so he curses um, all the uh, brahmanas who supported Daksha that they will be bereft of transcendental knowledge. So some brahmanas in the assembly, they did not admire, who supported Daksha, they did not admire Lord Shiva because of their ignorance. They did not understand the position of Lord Shiva. Um, so Nandishwar says that all these brahmanas and Daksha are only concerned with deriving all kinds of pleasures um, due because of their relationship with the body. So that's why they're heavily identifying with their body, and so they cannot understand the position of Lord Shiva. There's a verse in Bhagavad Gita that says, Bhogeshvara prashaktanam taya partha chetasam vyavasayatmika buddhir samadho na vidhiyate. So those who are extremely attached to sense objects and results of fruitive activities, in them, the determination to perform devotional service just cannot take place. If if you are so attached to material things, there is nothing you can see beyond those the material life. We cannot see beyond Maya. And so the bhakti will just not come. The desire to perform devotional service will just not come. And so that's what Nandishwar is alluding to here by saying that these brahmanas, are so consumed with their bodies and their position and um, the relationships of their bodies that they cannot understand the position of Lord Shiva. They cannot be fixed in devotional service. There's another verse that I wanted to pull up. Okay, maybe I don't have it. It's not this one. Okay. Anyways, yeah, so anyone who is supporting Daksha is bereft of transcendental knowledge. That was his curse. So then Nandishwar talks about how those who are attached to the superficial explanation in the Vedas and is attached to the fruitive activities, they cannot approach the Lord. So this is okay, this is the right verses. So these are two verses from the Bhagavad Gita that I thought were very relevant for this topic. So Yam imam pushpitam vacham pravadantya vipaschita vedavarata partha nanyad astiti vadina kamatmana swargapara janma karma phalapradam kriya vishesha bahulam bhogaishvarya gatim prati. Translation: Men of small knowledge are very much attached to the flowery words of the Vedas, which recommend various fruitive activities for elevation to heavenly planets, result in good birth, power, and so forth. Being desirous of sense gratification and opulent life, they say that there is nothing more than this. So this is essentially what Nandishwar is accusing these brahmanas of. He's saying that they are attached to the flowery words of the Vedas. They're only attached to the results of their fruitive activities. They're doing all of this only because they want good birth, power, and elevation to the heavenly planets. And they do not know anything beyond this. So that's what Nandishwar is saying. They're only attached to Gramya Sukh, meaning material happiness. And he also says that Daksha has forgot Vishnupad and Vishnugati. So he has forgotten the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu because he cannot see such a pure devotee of the Lord right in front of him. And so he says, he curses that he will soon have the face of a goat. Daksha will soon get the face of a goat, which will come in later chapters how that actually happens. So Nandishwar says that because of all these brahmanas being being so puffed up because of their materialistic education and all the sacrifices and yajnas and everything that they're doing, they will continue in this cycle of birth and death. So even if they go to the heavenly planets, they will exhaust all their good karma and then they will have to take birth again. So the only way to transcend the cycle of birth and death is given in the Bhagavad Gita, which is Janma Karma Cha Me Divyam Evam Yo Veti Tatvata Tyaktva Deham Punarjanma Neti Mam Eti. So Arjuna, only when we immerse ourselves into the topics of Krishna, when we chant his names, when we talk about um, his pastimes and his appearance, that's the only way we can get out of the cycle of birth and death. And so all these brahmanas performing all of these activities, these yajnas, sacrifices, until they come to the realization of who Krishna is and the importance of doing devotional service and executing devotional service, they will continue to be in the cycle of birth and death. So the curse is to the brahmanas that may you guys always be attached to fruitive activities. So Nandishwar then keeps going on of talking about how all these brahmanas don't know, they're only taking their education and austerity and vows for maintaining the body. They're begging door to door only for the body. And then Prabhupada talks in the purport about the Brahmanas in Kali Yuga. So, Brahmanas in Kali Yuga. So Prabhupada says that this curse we can see because of the Brahmanas in Kali Yuga who cannot follow, who do not come to the spiritual realization of the supremacy of of Krishna, and who are following the Vedas just for the namesake, just for performing the activities, and also only to get the results of those activities. The purpose of human life is to come to the realization of Brahman, and Brahmanas are meant to do that. But if they do not come to the realization of Brahman, then they aren't really Brahmanas. So Prabhupada says in the purport that the Brahmanas of Kali Yuga are attached to the body, and so they're not really Brahmanas. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said to Ramananda Roy that regardless of birth, whether someone is a householder or a sannyasi, if he is fixed in his bhakti, then he can become a spiritual master. And so even the associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, like Ramananda Roy and Haridas Thakur, they were born as Shudras. They were not born as Brahmanas. And even the Goswamis were ostracized from the Brahmin society. So the point here to make is that the Brahmanas have to come to the realization of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the purpose of the Vedas. That's the purpose of studying the Vedas and performing sacrifices, is to come to the realization of Krishna. And if that does not happen, then they aren't really Brahmanas, and their activities are become associated with the body only. Okay. And then more cursing happened. So sage Bhrigu Muni could not take the counter curse from Nandishwar, and so he started a counter curse, which is now a Brahminical curse. So a Brahminical curse is a Duratyaya, which is insurmountable. And Prabhupada says in the purport that all these curses and benedictions, they're all on the material platform. These are not, and nothing here is on the spiritual platform. All this cursing, counter cursing, is completely bereft of pure devotion to Krishna. It has nothing to do with bhakti and devotional service. And so this is all operating at a different platform than what Lord Shiva would want to. So that's why the best path to transcend all curses and benedictions is to take shelter of the Supreme Lord. And so Lord Shiva, even though he was cursed, he didn't care. He was, because he's in complete shelter of the Supreme Lord, he it did not bother him at all that he was cursed. Tattenukampam susumikshamaano. So we tolerate whatever comes our way, um, because it is coming as a result of our past karma. Now, Lord Shiva doesn't have any karma, so that's a different story. But he is taking everything as the will of the Supreme Lord. And so in our lives as well, we have to take everything as we have to quietly tolerate things that come our way, ultimately as it is the supreme will of the Lord. So there's more verses that talk about this topic from the Bhagavad Gita. Sama shatrau cha mitre cha tatha mana apamaneyo shitoshno sukha dukkheshu sama sanga vivarjita tulya ninda stutir mauni santushto yena kenachit aniketa sthiramatir bhakti ma me priyo naraha. One who is equal, and so this is a very good description of Lord Shiva in this context. One who is equal to friends and enemies, who is equipoised in honor and dishonor, heat and cold, happiness and distress, fame and infamy, who is always free from contaminating association, always silent and satisfied with anything, who doesn't care for any residence, who is fixed in knowledge, and who is engaged in devotional service. Such a person is very dear to me. So we can see how every single item stated here in this verse is applicable to Lord Shiva. He was equal to friends, and he didn't care that Daksha considered himself an enemy. He didn't care about the curse. He didn't care about how many offensive things he had said. He he was equipoised through the dishonor that he had to go through. Heat and cold. He lives in Kailash Parvat, so he's pretty tolerant to cold. Happiness and distress he doesn't care about. Fame and infamy he doesn't care about. Always free from contaminating association. So even though he is within contaminating, he's around contaminating association, he is giving them his association, but he internally is not being affected by all the demoniac association that he always gets. Always silent and satisfied with anything. Daksha said so many things, and there was so many counter cursing going on after, but Lord Shiva did not say a single word. Who doesn't care for any residence, so he does not have a home. He's completely renounced Lord Shiva. Who is fixed in knowledge and who is engaged in devotional service. Lord Shiva is always in trance. He's always meditating on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so he's always fixed in his devotional service. And so Lord Shiva is extremely, extremely dear to Krishna. Um, okay, so yeah, so anyone who takes shelter of Krishna, like Lord Shiva, are always peaceful. Whether they cursed or they get a benediction, it does not make a difference to them. They're equipoised through everything. So now Bhrigu Muni gives a Brahmanical curse to the followers of Lord Shiva that they will become atheists and they will be diverted from the transcendental scriptural injunctions. So Lord Shiva's devotees sometimes they imitate him, like they drink poison or they smoke ganja, and so those type of people they're going against the Vedic regulation. So um, this is the effect of the curse of Bhrigu Muni. But everything in the end is the desire of the Supreme Lord. So we have to keep that in mind. Um, so the Bhrigu Muni talks about the importance of the Vedas and how Nandishwar had offended the Brahmanas and the Vedas by saying what he said regarding following Vedic injunctions. So this verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam says, Yamaduta uchuhu Veda pranihito dharmo hyadharmas tad viparyaya Vedo narayana sakshat svayambhur iti shushruma. The Yamadutas replied, that which is prescribed in the Vedas constitutes dharma, the religious principles, and the opposite of that is irreligion. The Vedas are directly the Supreme Personality of Godhead Narayan and are self-born. This we have learned from Yamraj. So the point that Bhrigu Muni is trying to make is that anyone that goes against the Vedas, so that's he's alluding to all the followers of Shiva, they are going against the Supreme Personality of Godhead because the Vedas come from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so going against the Vedic regulations um, are people that are atheists. Um, Satchastra paripanthina. This is given in one of the verses in this chapter, um, which means that which is opposed to the conclusion of Shastra. So that is what is the followers of Lord Shiva are following. So Lord Shiva was ordered to preach the Mayavad philosophy for a certain purpose. So Shankaracharya came Lord Shiva came as Shankaracharya to preach the Mayavad philosophy. But again, that was sanctioned also by Krishna. And so why did Shankaracharya preach impersonalism to the world? It's because before Shankaracharya came Lord Buddha, who preached atheism, and that's Lord Buddha is also a form incarnation of Krishna, and that philosophy was taught to end nonviolence. And so after Lord Buddha, Shankaracharya came to bring back the importance of the Vedas. And so he came as to preach impersonalism, first to bewilder the atheists, then also by getting people to follow the Vedas, he also one of his motives was to increase the population of Kali Yuga. And then the third reason why he preached impersonalism was to distinguish between the genuine devotees of the Lord and the pretenders and cheaters who only want to merge into the Brahman, to the Brahma Jyoti. And so the fact that Lord Shiva was ordered by Krishna to come to the material world to preach atheism is given in the Padma Puran. So Lord Shiva is talking to Devi Durga, and he says, Maya vadam asat shastram prachannam bodham uchyate mayaiva vihitam devi kalau brahmana murtina. In this age of Kali, I take the form of a brahmana and explain the Vedas through false scriptures in the atheistic way, similar to Buddhist philosophy. So this is why Lord Shiva's followers are considered Mayavadi, and it's also I guess you can see from this curse that Lord Shiva's followers are considered atheists, or they're preaching Mayavad philosophy. Um, okay, so Bhrigu Muni talks about how the importance of Vedas, like we saw in that verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam. And he emphasizes on the fact that the Vedas come from the Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself. They're aparusheya, which means they're not coming from any man or demigod. So they're devoid of the four defects of Jivatmas. So the four defects of Jivatmas, we have imperfect senses, we're prone to be in illusion, we make mistakes, and we are also prone to be cheaters. And so these four defects make anything made by man um, worthy of having any fault. And so, but the Vedas are aparusheya, so they're completely devoid of any defects. The Vedas come from Krishna himself. Krishna is the original cause of everything. Vedascha sarver aham eva vedyo. He is the knower of the Vedas, and he is also the compiler of the Vedas. And so Vedas were given to Lord Brahma. Um, and the purpose of the Vedas was to create a bridge from the material existence to the spiritual world. And so the whole purpose of the Vedas is so that we can elevate our consciousness and our lives so that we can get to the platform of devotional service. Um, and since the Vedas have been prescribed by the Lord himself, they are authoritative, and whoever does not follow the Vedas lives like animals. So they are not taking advantage of the human birth that they have to follow what is given in the Vedas to elevate themselves to a higher consciousness. So this is the argument that Bhrigu Muni is making here. And whoever blasphemes the Vedas will descend to atheism. So that's the final curse of Brigamuni. So now hearing all of this, Lord Shiva becomes very morose, and he leaves because he wants all of this anger-filled cursing and counter-cursing to stop. And so he leaves the sacrifice, and then his disciples follow him. Throughout this entire episode, he does not say a single word. Um, and he did not consider anyone right or wrong either. He did not consider anyone higher or lower either. He just left because he wanted the cursing to stop. And so after he left, then the sacrifice was still executed. It was a 1,000-year sacrifice for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. All the other Prajapatis were there to execute the sacrifice. And so, and then in the last verse, Prabhupada talks about how demigod worship is if you worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, if you're fixed in your devotional service to Krishna, then demigod worship is not really necessary. Just like how we water he gives the example how we water the root of a tree and the branches and the leaves and the entire tree gets nourished. The same way when we worship Krishna, all the demigods also get pleased. By becoming a devotee of Lord Krishna, Lord Shiva is extremely pleased. So I know there's schools of thought and people thinking that, the demigods might get offended by if we just worship Krishna, but that's not true. That's given in the Srimad Bhagavatam. That's given. There are two verses that I have, but in the interest of time, I won't go over those. But there's evidence where Krishna says that demigod worship is not necessary if you are worshiping. It's avidhi purvakam. So it's not following the regulative principles in the sense that if you're not performing um, demigod worship with the intent of ultimately attaining love of Krishna, prema bhakti, then you're not following the regulative principles, because that is the ultimate goal of for us, is to be immersed in Krishna bhakti. So these type of yagyas, these types of worship are not possible by us in this world. Deva yagya, these types of sacrifices that these demigods performed, following the injunctions in the Vedas, is not feasible for our bodies and the yuga that we live in. And so what is recommended in this yuga is Sankirtan yagya. And so chanting the holy name of the Lord. And so I want to end with this verse, which is very dear to my heart and always reminds me of why I'm doing what I'm doing. So Nectar of Instruction number 8. Tannama rupa charitadi sukirtanano smrityo kramena rasana manasi niyojya tishthan vraje tadanuragi jananugami kalam nayed akhilam ityupadesha saran. The essence of all advice is that one should utilize one's full time, 24 hours a day, in nicely chanting and remembering the Lord's divine name, transcendental form, qualities, and eternal pastimes, thereby gradually engaging one's tongue and mind. In this way, one should reside in Vraja, Golok Vrindavan Dham, and serve Krishna under the guidance of devotees. One should follow in the footsteps of the Lord's beloved devotees who are deeply attached to his devotional service. So we've been learning about Lord Shiva and how he was completely immersed in trance, always in trance, meditating on the Lord, the name of the Lord, the pastimes of the Lord. And so this verse, it says the essence of all advice. So the whole point of everything that we're doing is to chant all the time, 24 hours a day. Every single breath we take, every single moment we have, we should be chanting. And that's the only way to attain prema bhakti, is to keep remembering the Lord, to be so immersed in chanting the holy name. Sometimes even I am guilty of this, is that chanting seems like one of the things to do. Like, okay, you chant, you do deity worship, you do you cook, you go to the temple, you clean. It's just one of the things. But no, chanting is the main thing. It is the thing that we are here to do. And this verse is what proves this. It's the essence of all advice is to chant. That is the number one priority of all devotees should be to chant as much as we can. All of our acharyas, all of the Goswamis, they they were chanting unlimitedly, 3 lakh names a day. That seems impossible for us now, but it came so naturally for them. Their focus was, their love for chanting the holy name was there. And the only way we can get that love is to keep chanting even more, even though now we feel like I don't have that taste. I don't have the determination, or I don't have the focus. It doesn't matter. We should still keep chanting, and one day we will get that determination. We will get that love for chanting. So that's what's prescribed for this yuga is Sankirtan Yagya, to keep chanting the holy name of the Lord. That should always be our number one priority, not just 16 rounds, but all the time. Um, in whatever way we possibly can, we should always remember Yena Tena Prakarana. We should always try to remember the Lord. There should not be a single breath, single moment gone without thinking about Krishna, without chanting his name. And that's our goal. Um, so yeah, I'll end here. Anyone have any comments, questions, discussion points?
Thank you, Mataji. Very comprehensive class with going into very small details of the pastime of the story. It was really nice. And yeah, the way you covered everything, by I especially liked how you were taking every theme in the story and then quoting verses from different scriptures to substantiate your points. So that was really nice. I personally felt. Yeah, overall it was very nice, Mataji. Thank you so much for preparing and first of all agreeing to do this and then preparing, because I know it takes a lot of effort with Kirija being around and so many other things going on in temple. Yeah, so it was really good. Yeah, and as Gaurakumar Prabhu is mentioning here in the chat, how you ended with NOI 8th verse and the glories of the holy name. And yeah, I agree. I'm also guilty of that attitude that yeah, of taking chanting as being one of the things rather than the main thing. So yeah, that was a really amazing way to end, actually, reminding us of chanting. So yeah, thank you very much, Mataji.
Thank you,
Anyone
Prabhu.
else has anything to say, dear devotees? So there are some chats. So Gaurakumar, chat messages, very comprehensive class with so many take-home messages. Thanks so much. I personally liked how you connected 12, 18, and 19 with Shiva's qualities. Yeah. And also how you ended with NOI 8. And Nitya Mataji says, I love the connection of the points with Bhagavad Gita verses. It takes a lot of knowledge and research to come to 360 level understanding. Yeah, totally.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you, Mataji.
Okay. If no one else wants to share, we can end here. Are there any announcements, Gaur Kumar Prabhu, before we end? Anything? Okay, I take the silence as no. Okay. Okay, thank you, dear devotees. वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। हर ग्रेस सिंधु कन्या माता जी की जय। हरि बोल।
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.